Imagine a night, the sky illuminated by fireworks, millions of people on the streets, flags in their hands, tears in their eyes, and only one emotion in their hearts: pride in freedom. These are the scenes from America on the night of July 4th. But friends, behind this celebration lies a story that will leave you thrilled, a story where winning meant gaining everything and losing meant being sent to the gallows. Today, we are going to learn the complete story of America's Independence Day, the story of that July 4th which changed the course of world history. Hello, I am Hemant Hadav and I warmly welcome all of you to today's episode. It was the 1600s. Thousands of people from Europe were crossing the Atlantic Ocean in search of new world. Britain, France and Spain all were establishing their colonies on the American soil. The British established 13 colonies along the eastern coast of America. The people living in these colonies were British, followed British traditions, but they were gradually developing a distinct identity of their own. When did the real problem begin? In 1763, when Britain won the war against France. And to repay the debts of that war, it began imposing new taxes on the American colonies. The Sugar Act 1764, the Stamp Act 1765, one law after another was introduced. Taxes had to be paid to the British government on every document, every newspaper, and every legal paper. The colonists became angry. They began shouting, "No taxation without representation." Meaning, if we have no representation, then there should be no taxation. But the king in the London, King George III, did not listen. Instead, he made the laws even stricter. And then came the event that changed history forever. The night of December 16, 1773, Boston Harbor. Around 120 men, disguised as Mohawk Native Americans, boarded British ships. Then they threw 342 chests of trees, worth nearly 2 crores in today's value, into the sea one by one. This was the Boston Tea Party, the first major spark of the American struggle for independence. The British government was furious. They imposed the intolerable acts, closed Boston Harbor, and stripped the colonies of many of their rights. But instead of frightening the colonists, these operations united them. The year was 1775. The Revolutionary War had begun in America. Conflict had erupted between the British Army and the colonists. In Philadelphia, the Second Continental Congress was in the session. Representatives of the 13 colonies had gathered together. There was only one question: should we compromise with Britain or should we demand independence? Compromise meant survival. Demanding independence meant risking their lives. Because if Britain won, all of these leaders would be branded traitors and hanged. But in January 1776, Thomas Paine published a pamphlet called Common Sense. In simple language, understandable to ordinary people. He argued there is no alternative to independence. Millions of copies were sold, public opinion changed. June 7, 1776, Richard Henry Lee of Virginia introduced a resolution in Congress. These colonies are, and of right ought to be, and free, independent states. All political connections with the British crown is dissolved. Congress appointed a committee, the Committee of Five. Its members were Thomas Jefferson, Virginia; John Adams, Massachusetts; Benjamin Franklin, Pennsylvania; Roger Sherman, Connecticut; Robert R. Livingston, New York. The responsibility of drafting the Declaration of Independence was given to Thomas Jefferson. Jefferson was only 33 years of old, yet on the second floor of a rented house in Philadelphia, he wrote that historic document in just 17 days. July 2, 1776, the Continental Congress voted and 12 colonies voted in favor of independence. On the same day, John Adams wrote a letter to his wife Abigail. This day will be celebrated by succeeding generation as the great anniversary festival, with fireworks, bells, parades, and illuminations from one end of the continent to the other. Adams believed the celebration would be held on July 2nd, but history chose differently. On 4th July 1776, the Continental Congress officially adopted the Declaration of Independence. The date July 4 was printed on the document, and that is the day that became immortal in history. The first famous words of the documents were, "We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal." These words were not merely ink on paper. They were among the most revolutionary words ever written in human history. All 56 men who signed this document knew one thing: if Britain won, their signatures would become signatures on their own death warrants. Yet they still picked up the pen. That was the courage. July 4, 1777, the first anniversary of independence. The war was still ongoing, but a celebration was held in Philadelphia. 13 cannon shots were fired, representing the 13 colonies. Fireworks light up the night sky. That same year, General George Washington gave his soldiers double rations of rum in honor of Independence Day. In 1781, Massachusetts became the first state to officially declare July 4th a public holiday. In 1870, the US Congress declared July 4th a federal holiday, and in 1938, it became a paid holiday. Even today, Americans spend nearly $1 million every year on fireworks alone, approximately 8,300 crores. Now, friends, listen to these incredible coincidences. So unbelievable that they sound almost impossible. Coincidence number one: Thomas Jefferson, who wrote the Declaration of Independence, and John Adams, the second president who signed it, were lifelong political rivals. They argued throughout their political careers, but in the final years of their lives, they became friends, and they came an astonishing twist of history. On July 4, 1826, exactly on the 50th anniversary of independence, both men died on the very same day. Jefferson passed away in the morning, Adams died later that afternoon. One of the Adams' final words was, "Thomas Jefferson survives." But he did not know that Jefferson had died just a few hours earlier. Was it merely a coincidence or poetry written by history itself? No one knows. Coincidence number two: 5 years later, on July 4, 1831, the third president, James Monroe, also died on the same date. Three presidents, one date, July 4th. Coincidence number three: only one president in American history was born on July 4th, Calvin Coolidge, in 1872. And John Adams initially believed that Independence Day should be celebrated on July 2nd because that was the day the vote for independence took place. He was so convinced that he would deliberately avoid attending July 4th celebration. But history proved Adams wrong. The declaration carried the date 4th July, and that became the day remembered by the world. So friends, what happens in America on July 4th today? Parades begin early in the morning. Streets are filled with red, white, and blue. American flags wave proudly in the people's hand. Children smile with excitement. In the afternoon, families gathered together. Barbecue, the tradition of grilling meat and vegetables over open flames. Corn, burgers, and hot dogs are served alongside. In the evening, concerts and musical performances take place. At night, the fireworks begins. The Macy's 4th of July fireworks in New York history is the largest fireworks display in the United States. Millions gather along the banks of Hudson River to watch. In Washington, D.C., the National Mall hosts a grand parade and the president delivers a speech. Late into the night, the sky remains illuminated and all of the America joins together in saying, "Happy 4th of July." Friends, the story of July 4th is not just America's story. It is the story of people who risked their lives by putting their signatures on a piece of paper. People who knew that if they failed, the gallows awaited them. Freedom is never free. It must be earned. It must be fought for. It requires sacrifice. Whether it is the independence of India or the independence of America, behind it lie countless sacrifices, acts of courage, and the stories of determination. The freedom we take for granted today was purchased with someone else's blood and sweat. And that is why the fireworks of July 4th are not merely symbols of celebration. They are symbols of gratitude. They are salute to courage. If you enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe, and share these lessons of history with your friends. And keep reading because if you read, you will succeed.